Good morning. This is Scott Fletcher.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The time is
This is
10
Joe
p.m.
Pennington.
The meeting is recording, and we do have a quorum, sir.
Very good. Thank you. I hereby call to order this meeting, the Arizona Boxing and Mixed Martial Arts Commission. Today is Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. Would those commissioners that are in attendance please identify themselves and state as to whether they are here in person or via telephone or via Google Meets?
This is Joe Pennington. I'm participating by telephone.
And I am Scott Fletcher. I am too participating via telephone. B is our new business. B1 is pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604 for persons over the age of 36. The new license application submitted by Ms. Amaryllis Adorno for a 2024 professional boxer license. Mr. Vella, you speak to Ms. Adorno's application, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Adorno is 44 years old. She has a record of 1-11. And although not pretty, I'll note that Ms. Adorno has competed against some pretty stellar opponents in the past, and she has done very well. If you notice, all of her losses have been by decision, with the exception of one TKO, which was stopped due to a cut. She has been very close in all of her decisions and has won several rounds. So she is a very competitive boxer, and the opponent that they've matched her with for this next weekend is less experienced than some of her previous opponents. And so with that, obviously, in addition to her training regimen, which is as follows: she trains 2.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and she runs in the morning 4 times a week, and then she does strength and conditioning with light weights each day as well. She spars twice a week, and she feels very strong and very good about her upcoming bout. She says that at her age, she's very happy to feel as good as she does. She feels that she's prepared to compete because she recently fought in South Carolina and had a pretty good performance. So she feels very good. And as it relates to that bout in South Carolina, she lost by unanimous decision, and she won numerous rounds despite losing overall. She says that she feels grateful that she has not suffered any injuries and that she's still standing. Sir, with all of that said, and based on her competitive record, I do recommend Ms. Adorno for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. Yeah, in these cases, we want to vet these fighters as carefully as possible, and I appreciate how thorough you are. Commissioner Pennington, what are your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I have some grave reservations. She has not suffered any knockouts, but looking back at her record, the last time she won a fight was 10 years ago. And I'm just really concerned. It doesn't appear as though she's been hurt, but I don't want to see us put a tomato can in the ring for somebody to punch on. So Mr. Vella, have you seen her sparring at all recently?
Commissioner, I've watched several of her bouts, and to make it clear, although when we have fighters in this type of a record, one of the things that I look at is to whether they're competitive in their bouts. And as I mentioned, she's won several rounds, and while she's fallen short of winning, she's competed against some very, very high-level fighters and some opponents that have gone on to become, world champions. So Sinisa Estrada, for example. And so with that, and having watched several of her rounds and bouts, she's a competitive athlete. I can attest to that.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. And her opponent, have you had any opportunity to see her, watch her, or I guess let me get to the point. Uh, do you feel as though this will be a competitive bout and we're not just putting somebody in the ring to be punched on?
Yes, sir, Commissioner. I would not make a recommendation if I felt otherwise.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I really appreciate same comments from the chairman. I really appreciate your thoroughness on all of these matters. I have no other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate you vetting the situation carefully as well. Is Commissioner Feinstein with us? Do we know? Okay, it's a two-man band today. I'm inclined to I feel like Mr. Bella knows more about this than anyone in the room, and his recommendation is a critical thing. Obviously, matchmaking is critically a very critical component of this, and it sounds like this is a balanced fight. The chair would be open to a motion if one exists.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604, she being a fighter over age 36, I move that we grant a new license, boxing license, to Miss Ardano for a 2024 professional boxing license. Amaryllis
Thank you.
Ardano.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. I am going to second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 2-0. Congratulations, Ms. Adorno. B2 is pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604 for persons over the age of 36. The new license application submitted by Mr. Andrew Hernandez for a 2024 professional boxer license. Mr. Bella, let's talk about Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hernandez is 38 years old. He is no stranger to Arizona, obviously being an Arizona local, and it has been some time since he's last competed. So since 2021, he was scheduled to compete in the upcoming Iron Boy event this weekend, and he has submitted everything to us, but we were not able to get a detailed description of his current training regimen. And so with that, obviously he's not competing this weekend. I'm open to tabling it. I am comfortable making a recommendation based on his past performance, but considering that he has not competed since 2021, I need to know where he's at currently. So with that said, I'll leave it open to the commission as to whether they would prefer that we table this or if we'd like to press forward with the item today.
Well, Mr. Bell, I think matchmaking is a critical thing when we get into these higher age groups. And so I'd love to know who Mr. Hernandez is hoping to fight. Commissioner Pennington, how do you feel about this?
Well, let me ask Mr. Veller, when is Mr. Hernandez trying to get a bout? For what date?
So as mentioned, sir, he was scheduled for the Iron Boy event this weekend, but that bout is no longer in the system. So therefore, he's not competing this weekend. We do not have a tentative bout in mind.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would just recommend that we table this until we have something more definitive as to what the opponent might be.
I tend to agree, and I'm going to take your thoughts, please, Mr. Vella. Let's table this until we know more with Mr. Hernandez, and revisit it at our next meeting if we can.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Pressing on to B3, also pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604 for persons over the age of 36. The new license application submitted by Mr. Christopher Collins for a 2024 professional boxer license. Mr. Vella, let's talk about this application, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Collins is 36 years old. I had the pleasure of evaluating Mr. Collins in person last week. and he sparred 6 rounds. He did well. Obviously, as a professional MMA fighter, making a transition over to boxing. There are some differences, and Mr. Collins has adapted well to boxing, and he's in great physical shape based on my observations, and he did a good job. He maintained his stamina throughout the sparring sessions, and I'm confident that he'll be a competitive athlete in the professional boxing ranks. Now, as far as his training regimen goes, he trains 2 hours a day, typically 6 days a week. He does boxing work. He does weight training 2 days a week, 3 days of sprints, and then 2 to 3 days of longer runs. Typically, he says that his training sessions also include 25 to 45 minutes of running, and then lifting sessions are usually about 25 to 35 minutes. He does high intensity interval training, otherwise known as HIIT. He spars 1 to 2 times a week, strength training 2 times a week, conditioning. That was a bit redundant there. I apologize. He does feel mentally, physically, and emotionally prepared for an upcoming bout. He says he feels great about the camp and getting ready for his future bout. He says that he feels prepared to compete because the amount of time that his coaches and team has put into him to find sparring and to work on the fundamentals of boxing and to drill mechanics day in and day out. As far as preparation, he says that he's been preparing very hard. The other reasons that he feels prepared are that internally he has discipline and consistently works to ensure that he's putting in the most amount of work to condition his body physically and mentally. He has not experienced any recent injuries, and overall he feels ready to go. With that said, we do not have an upcoming bout for Mr. Collins, but I am confident in his abilities, and obviously matchmaking is something that I'm very diligent with. Therefore, I do recommend his approval as a professional boxer.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Vela. And again, thank you for vetting these folks so carefully. It's critically important and very, very helpful. Commissioner Pankton, what are your thoughts regarding Mr. Collins?
Mr. Chairman, it looks as though he has competed in MMA in the past, and apparently is wanting to make a transition, at least upcoming, for boxing. And based on Mr. Vela's comments regarding his conditioning and observation of his sparring, I feel very comfortable in making a recommendation if one is, at this point, if that's appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner. One is appropriate. I tend to agree with you. So the chair would be open to a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604, that we grant a 2024 professional boxing license to Mr. Christopher Collins.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion, which I am going to second. We now have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 2-0. Congratulations, Mr. Collins. Item B4 is pursuant to ARS sections 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604 for persons over the age of 36. The new license application submitted by Ms. Miriam Nazar Lopez for a 2024 professional MMA combatants license. Mr. Vela, let's talk about Ms. Nazar Lopez.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lopez is 36 years old. She is scheduled to compete in the upcoming LFA event on July 12th, and she is matched currently against an opponent with a 0-1 record. So the same record that Ms. Lopez has in the professional ranks. As far as her training regimen goes, she trains 1.5 to 2 hours a day, and she has 1.5 hour sessions 2 times a day. She trains 5 days a week, and she spars once or twice a week. She does conditioning 4 times a week, and she says she's excited about her next bout and wants to see the improvement from her first professional bout. She feels that she has a good game plan for this fight and that her teammates always give her an extra push in training to be ready. She hasn't injured herself in camp and says that she's always cautious and listening to her body to know that she's in the best shape. So with that said, sir, I do recommend her approval. I think that the match that's been made with LFA is a competitive bout, and Ms. Lopez will do just fine.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Vella. Commissioner Pennington, what are your thoughts here?
Mr. Chairman, I have no questions. I would be happy to make a motion if one is appropriate.
One is appropriate. Love to hear one.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to ARS 5-227, 5-228, and AAC R19-2-C604, that we grant a new MMA combatant license, 2024 combatant license, to Miss Marian Nazar Lopez.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion, which I am going to second. We now have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 2-0. Congratulations to Ms. Lopez. Let's push into C, our information reports. C1 is our event reports. The following events were previously approved and due to unforeseen circumstances were postponed to later dates. The first was a request from Rough Nation LLC for approval of an MMA event to be held at the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix, Arizona on Saturday, June 1st, 2024. This event will now take place on Saturday, August 17th, 2024. And the second was a request from Del Sol Boxing Promotions LLC for approval of a boxing event to be held at the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix, Arizona on Saturday, June 8th, 2024. This event will now take place at American Royal Palace in Phoenix, Arizona on Saturday, June 27th, 2024. As disclosed during the May 15th commission meeting, due to a potential conflict of interest, the executive director has recused himself from this event, and this event will be administered by Assistant Director Juan Carlos Estrada. Mr. Vella, any thoughts about our event reports?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of items. In the interest of transparency, obviously, as noted there on the agenda, I'd also like to reiterate my statement from the May 15th meeting. So I am related to a boxer who will be competing on the Del Sol boxing card on July 27th. Therefore, a potential conflict of interest exists. If I were to perform my duties as the executive director of the Division of Boxing and Mixed Martial Arts, specifically relating to that event. Therefore, the director of the Arizona Department of Gaming has appointed Assistant Director Juan Estrada as the acting executive director to perform the duties prescribed by Title V, Article 2, specifically relating to the July 27, 2024 Del Sol boxing card. Accordingly, the duties as the executive director of the division will be carried out by Assistant Director Juan Estrada, specifically regarding the July 27, 2024 Del Sol boxing card. Should the commission, licensees, or any members of the public have questions or concerns regarding this matter, please contact Yadania Felix at 602-364-1721 or via infobox@azgaming.gov. I retain all duties of the executive director as to all matters pending before the division and the Arizona Boxing Mixed Martial Arts Commission, other than the July 27, 2024 Del Sol boxing card. Mr. Chairman, I will, reiterate that this is obviously contingent upon that athlete competing on the card, which they have indicated that they are keeping their bout card the same.
Very good. I appreciate you following the book and recruiting yourself. It's the right thing to do, and I appreciate you taking care of that. Let's talk about our bill. C2, the legislative update.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
yes.
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Casillas, Deputy Director Casillas, has his hand raised.
Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. A couple matters previous where you tabled the combatants' approval. It is recommended that the commission make a motion and vote to table that matter.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Casillas, right. You're talking about B2. You were talking about B2, Mr. Hernandez, which we did table.
That's correct.
Okay. I appreciate you jumping in. You said you had more than one item. Is there something else we should talk about
No,
too?
that was it, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Casillas. I appreciate you jumping in. Why don't we circle back to B2 if we could? We had discussed the
Chairman?
possibility of daylight. Yes. Yes, sir.
I move that we table the application for Andrew Hernandez until we have a better idea of what his opponent would be.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion, which I am going to second. We now have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 2-0. We're going to table Mr. Hernandez's application until the next time we meet. Thank you, Mr. Casillas, for catching that and getting us on the straight and narrow. Circling back to C2, our legislative update. Senate Bill 1679 passed a final read in the state Senate on Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, and has been transmitted to the governor's office, which is great news. Mr. Vella, what do you know about this?
Mr. Chairman, yes, it passed the final read on June 13th and was transmitted to the governor's office. I don't have much more information than that, other than that it's made it through the legislative process, and now the matter is with the governor. So it's
fantastic
final
news.
step.
Yeah, I just want to thank yourself, Mr. Vella, Commissioner Pennington, Commissioner Feinstein, and everyone else who was involved in crafting this piece. Senator Gowan, who navigated it through a very busy legislative session. It makes us better, I think, in every way, and I look forward to hopefully the governor signing it sometime soon. Commissioner Pennington, your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree with you. I think that one other person that we ought to thank, who is no longer with the department, but that's Max Hargrave, who really helped us get things moving and get it in legislative language and working to get the thing passed. So I appreciate his efforts as well as everyone else's.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I was remiss in not discussing Max. Max did a great job. He got Commissioner Feinstein to testify in this bill and got me out to talk about 1575, another bill that affected us greatly. And he'll be missed. He did a great job, I think, getting all of us heading in the right direction. So this is great news. Mr. Bella, is there any chance at a signing ceremony, or we don't know enough yet?
Mr. Chairman, I do not know enough yet, but I do know that the governor is extremely busy. And therefore, I would not want to get anybody's hopes up. I'm not sure which direction that'll go, but I will keep the commissioners apprised of if there's any talks of a signing party or celebration.
Please do. Thanks again. Everybody who was involved in this, it's a huge win for us. It really helps us clean up some of the stranger language in our statutes. So I think we are going to be much better once we get this signed, knock wood. Let's head to D, call to the public. Mr. Vella, are there folks here who would like to talk to us?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see any hands currently raised.
Okay, very good. E is called to the commission. Commission members or the executive director may introduce a summary of current events, ask questions, and or make comments. Mr. Vella, anything you'd like to talk about?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We had a little bit of a break in events over the past 6 weeks or so. Obviously, we had the two events. Throughout May, we had no scheduled events taking place, and then the first two events in June were postponed, as stated earlier. Our first event back was the OG boxing event held at Bull Shooters this past weekend on June 15th. It was a great event. They had 5 bouts, and I give kudos to the promoter and to the matchmaker for well-made matches and for getting everything in timely in terms of licensing and all requirements for fighters. They did a tremendous job, and it was nice to have everybody back. Our staff did great, and all of our inspectors and officials got right back in the saddle as if they didn't skip a beat, so to speak. With that said, during the time that we did not have events, we took advantage of that time to hold some trainings for officials. We had an inspector's training as well as a boxing judge training these trainings were excellent, and they helped to really bring some collaboration from our officials and to help to foster an environment that is conducive to learning and collaborating, so that everybody, all of our officials, can begin to see the same things and improve together. And so we have started to standardize some of those training procedures, as well as documenting and keeping track of training materials from the ABC and other jurisdictions that we feel are effective, so that our officials can be have all the resources they need to be successful and continue to excel at what they do. With that said, we do have several events upcoming the remainder of the month. And this weekend we have Iron Boy Boxing on Saturday. And then next weekend we have two events. We have Matchroom on Saturday, June 29th, and then Sweet Science on Sunday, June 30th. So we look forward to those events, and I trust that they will go off without a hitch.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. Yes, it's a great calendar. Sometimes things slow down a little bit in the summer, but we are still grinding away. The Sweet Science is back, and that'll be an interesting card. Matchroom coming back out next week with a world title fight. It's going to be very exciting. They like coming to Arizona, and we take good care of them every time, and they bring some spectacular fights, including this Rodriguez Estrada fight. It's going to be fantastic. Sonny Edwards is on that card. That's a special one. I'm glad to see Sweet Science getting back at it on Sunday too. So good things to come. Commissioner Pennington, thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to concur with everything you said. That's all.
That's what I like. I just like someone who agrees with everything I say. Thank you.
I'm the
Thank
only
you,
one.
Commissioner. It's always good to hear your voice. So thank you. But let's head to F. The notion that the next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, July 17th, 2024, and is subject to change based on a quorum. G is an adjournment. Is there a motion for such?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion. I'm going to second that motion. We now have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 2-0. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you all. Great things are to come. Take care, everyone.